Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to, what is this, episode 2 already?
It's episode 2.
Oh my god. Okay, so a couple housekeeping things to get out of the way here. I feel like we need to start with two things. First is a disclaimer. This applied last time, it applies this time as well, is that the stuff that Paul and I talk about on this podcast reflect the opinions of he and I. Not our employers, not our wives, not anybody we really care about, just each other. So if we say something you don't agree with, please don't, yell at anybody but us.
Yeah, it's all our fault.
It's all our fault. Second is, we're going to start the show with a couple corrections, I think.
Yeah, follow up.
Yeah. Are we allowed to say that?
I think so.
Okay. Who wants to go first? Because you have one and I have one, right?
Yeah. So I think both of ours involve cooking. We were talking about the Instapot last time, and I said how my wife doesn't cook, she bakes. Well, I've been corrected. She can cook eggs.
Okay, and to piggyback on that, I said that me and my wife were Instapot users. I was informed after the show had aired and she listened to it that she is an Instapot user. I am not an Instapot user. She felt the need to point that out. So I'm sorry. I am a terrible diarrhea person that makes diarrhea in his diaper, and I said something that I shouldn't have said. So I am sorry that I misrepresented who is the Instapot user in the household. Wow. Okay. With that out of the way, episode 2. So why don't we talk about your experience with basically doing all of the work for our podcast?
Actually, I enjoyed it. I'm using an app called Fairwrite for iOS to edit the podcast. It was actually kind of enjoyable. And yeah, I have a website. We are at doingtheirbest.com, and we have a Twitter account, doingbestpod on Twitter.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're selling yourself a little short. So when Paul and I agreed to do this podcast, we had a rough idea of what we wanted this to be. It just took us forever for us to pull the trigger on this. But I don't know anything about what it actually takes to make a podcast show up on places where podcasts show up. I understand there's just probably like an RSS/XML thing involved, but you're selling yourself short here because you did all of the editing. You did the website, you did the show notes, you did the editing by combining our voices together, you bleeped out the places where I cussed, you did a lot of work, and I didn't do any. So I think that needs to be called out.
Oh, well, thank you. You're making me blush.
I need to do more, quite frankly. And you did share some super secret credentials with me, and I want to do more this time. So maybe I can log in and do the show notes this time.
Okay.
Another quick piece of housekeeping. Do we have an email address where people can email us and yell at us? Because it's going to happen.
We do.
Okay, hit us.
Contact@doingtheirbest.com.
Okay, so contact@doingtheirbest.com. And I think we're going to be on Twitter, right?
We will. Doing Best Pod.
Doing Best Pod. Okay. Now, the reason that nobody knows this is when we last left our hero, Paul, you had managed to get our podcast on every major platform except the one that matters.
Exactly.
Okay, so any updates there?
None.
So here we are in episode 2. Our podcast is not in the Apple iTunes podcast directory yet. Do you want to talk about what happened there?
Well, I didn't understand that both Google and Apple basically review your podcast before adding it to their directory. Spotify was up in 30 seconds. Like they don't care. They don't care.
Yeah, they'll take whoever they can get, right?
Google, after 2 days, they were fine. Apple, the first time I submitted it, they said, "No, it looks like you're creating a test podcast. Please, follow all of these rules," which they bury. So I went through, I validated that our RSS feed met their standards. I got green checks. They give you a little test site to run your RSS feed against to make sure everything works. I got all green check marks. I resubmitted it. It took about 6 days last time to get back, so I expect about the same there. And then if it doesn't work again, I have to go into the quagmire that is emailing Apple.
Yeah, they don't make that easy.
No.
From what I understand.
No. And there's not a lot of insight. It's just like, hey, we rejected you. Eat pant.
Eat pants. That kind of works out in our favor, though, because we are late in our second edition here because of me. I was traveling last week for my new job, and I did get home on the scheduled day that we were going to do the podcast, but because I'm a nervous flyer, I took too many drugs, and I passed out. That we'll get into that later. I have Drew's travel tips. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Okay. I think that's enough follow up. I don't know if we got to come up with a term for this section of the podcast where we basically recap space between podcasts. I don't know what that's going to be yet.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be a great place for anybody who's actually going to email us to give us a suggestion.
That's true.
Yeah. First come, first serve, or you want to crowdsurf that?
Let's just crowdsource it. Let's see what happens.
Okay. All right. Okay. So looking at our document, where do you want to start here? I'll let you pick the topic first.
I really want to hear the story about your run flat tires.
Okay. I'm a little bit of a car snob. I think people who know me know this. I bought a new car. It's coming up on 2 years ago. Make and model not important. However, suffice to say that I spent more money than I should have. It depends on how you look at cars. If you're the kind of person who looks at cars as point A to point B, you look at me like a snob and a jerk, and you point at me in the highway and say, this guy's a jerk because of the car he drives. But more and more these days, cars are shipping with run-flat tires. Now, I don't know the science behind how they work, but the name implies that if you were to get a flat tire, the tire doesn't go flat right away. You can get, it depends on the make and model of the tire and the car, but you can get about 50 miles as long as you obey certain speed limits and other certain driving conditions. You can get where you need to go. So, the day before I was due to fly out for work, I was out shopping. We left where we were shopping, and I heard some very, very loud road noise. Didn't think anything of it because sometimes that happens. You hit a rough patch of road or something.
Right.
Was only going 25, 30 miles an hour. And then I got the dreaded tire pressure pop-up on my little screen in the front of my dashboard. And it wasn't like the tire was just low. When the little gauge popped up, it basically showed me all 4 tire pressures. My front 2 tires were low. My rear tire, my right rear tire, was red. There's white, yellow, and red. Yellow's like, hey, do something about this. Red's like, you're done.
Right.
So it was super low. It was in the red. And from the time that it popped up and that I pulled over to the side of the road, I had lost about 4 PSI, so something wasn't good.
Right.
Got out of the car to check the tire, and I actually heard rushing air. Like, that's how bad it was.
That's never good.
No, never good. Now, here's the thing. Run flat tires. I think it depends on the car manufacturer. The car manufacturer of the car that I have doesn't give you a spare, not even a donut.
Wow.
Yeah, so roadside assistance is a thing that a lot of car companies have these days. So call roadside assistance. They basically told me, look, based on the model of your car and the information we have on file about you, you have run flat tires. So they said, okay, the first question was, how far are you from your house? And I said, I'm like 5 miles from my house. And the nice gentleman on the other end of the line said, okay, here's what I would do. He goes, I would drive it to your house. If you can get it to the dealership, great. If not, just have it towed to your house, or drive it to your house. Sorry. So I said, okay. So I started the car back up, put my blinkers on, drove very slow, made a lot of people angry in places, and got my car to my house. At that point, I was late for dinner, and I figured, listen, the car's not going anywhere. So what I'll do is I'll go to dinner. I'll take care of the rest of my errands for the evening. Then I will call roadside assistance again and have them come tow my car. As part of roadside assistance with this particular car manufacturer, you get free towing, and it's flatbed towing, so it's not like they're going to mess up your all-wheel drive system or anything. So, called roadside assistance this whole time. So, another thing to know, the dealership where I bought my car is less than a mile away. So, I really don't know why I just didn't drive the car to the dealership. It's just something that didn't occur to me until after the fact. So the dealership was closed by the time we got back from dinner. So I had a nice man on a flatbed come and tow my car to the dealership. And that's where it sat all week until they could get another tire. So that's what happened.
Now, I have a question.
Yeah, okay.
So what is it like to drive on a flat tire? Does it feel different?
No.
Feels the same.
No, it feels the same because, and part of that is my car is technically all-wheel drive, but it has a rear bias. So for those of you that don't know what that basically means that instead of like a Subaru or an Audi or a vehicle that is in four-wheel drive, the wheels on the car do not apply the same amount of force unless, active stability or something kicks in. So when I press the gas, my rear tires provide more power than my front tires. The front tires do kick in and take more of the work if there's some kind of traction problem. In this case, though, because I was going so slow and obeying the limits of what you're supposed to do with run flat tires, I didn't notice a thing. Obviously, my steering wasn't affected because it wasn't my front wheels. I think it might have been a slightly different story if it were my front wheels. But the fact that it was my back rear tire and I wasn't gunning it by any sense of the means, I didn't really notice anything. I mean, it was a little louder because it was riding on whatever makes it run flat,
right? And
it didn't damage my wheel. So all in all, instead of, I don't know, a couple $1,000s for a new wheel and not being able to do anything with it and having to have it towed to a dealer or put on a donut in the middle of nowhere. I guess all things considered, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but not what I really wanted to deal with the day before I had to fly out of town.
Yeah, that makes sense. You kind of just want to get your stuff done, go to the airport, and not deal with it.
And to an extent, that's what I did. The thing that made it really weird was, so I dropped it off at the dealership. The tow truck guy dropped my keys in the overnight slot. Now, remember, this is Saturday night. They're closed. They're not open on Sunday at all. So I don't hear from them until Monday. And the gentleman on the phone, and to their credit, this dealership, super great, super nice. And I got no problem with this particular dealership. Everything was great. It's just that I was due to fly back Thursday evening. Thursday morning, I still hadn't heard anything. I spoke to them on Monday, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna get you a tire ordered." And I told them about a couple other little, nagging things about the car. There's this weird rattle that was in my steering column that apparently was a service bulletin, so they took care of that. But I hadn't heard, "Hey, your car's ready." 4 days later. And, I understand that maybe they don't have that particular tire in wherever they keep the parts for their cars, but I can't imagine that's something you can't get 2 days later.
Right.
So they must have been extremely busy, or it might have been hard to get. Couldn't tell you. Long story short, I called them Thursday and I'm like, "Hey, yeah, where's my car?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, it'll be ready Friday. Why don't you come pick it up?" So after I got back into town Thursday night and passed out on my couch, just walked over to the dealership Friday morning because it was a beautiful morning and there wasn't really anything else going on just then. And they opened kind of early, so I got there, picked up my car, and that was that.
Nice. I've never had a car that fancy, so.
Yeah, but it seems like if you go and you look at most like cars that you can look online right now, if run flats aren't standard, they're probably not a big upgrade.
Right. It's getting more inexpensive and more common.
And I feel like, at least in this particular car's case, they don't give you a donut, and they don't even give you a spare. Now, I have a good friend of mine who has a very expensive and very fast Jeep that has run flat performance tires, but he has a full size spare that is also a run flat. So I think it just kind of varies by, what kind of car you buy and how generous they are with that kind of thing. So if you get so the moral of the story is this: if you're getting a car with run flat tires, ask what your spare situation is. And if the answer is you don't have a spare, or you only have a donut, you may want to ask what the roadside assistance package is, because you may very well find yourself in a place where you are more than whatever the rating is to get where you need to go with these things. So just know what you're getting into with this. This is my first go around with them, and a little eye-opening. Like I said, it could have been a lot worse, but we were okay.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Boy. Yeah. I mean, still, it was an expense, right? Because nobody buys road hazard insurance. So it wasn't cheap. But it's one of those things where the things that you're not covered for are the things you end up paying a lot for. And in this case, it was a few $100s expense. So, yeah. Yeah,
I had a nail in my tire not that long ago, and yeah, I had to replace it. Woo.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What else we want to do here? That's one down.
I don't know. Why don't you pick?
Ooh. Okay. Let's see here. Looking at the document. Can I talk about my recent scare that I just had right before I walked down to record this podcast with my beloved Mac?
I would love to hear that.
Okay. So for those of you that didn't listen to the first episode yet, or don't know me personally, I recently changed jobs. Long story short, the company I'm working for issues you a laptop, but I, from my previous job, purchased my own MacBook Pro. There's a lot of reasons behind that. One, I like working with Mac OS. Two, I just don't think handing out crappy Dells is a great user experience for anybody, or any crappy corporate laptops for that matter. My new company, to their credit, gave me a very, very nice Windows device. No knock against Windows, no knock against this particular hardware. It's actually pretty powerful and pretty nice from what I've used so far. But I just want to use my Mac, and this company lets you use personal devices at work. But in order to do that, we need to talk about what makes all that possible, and that's mobile device management. So long story short, if you want to use your personal device for official corporate work, and I should mention that this isn't specific to where I work now, there's a lot of companies that have to do this, is that device needs to be managed somehow. Now this conversation is going to spiral in a lot of different directions. But the first thing I want to talk about is what it takes to use a personal computer and personal cell phone with mobile device management. So the whole concept of mobile device management here is that your machine meets certain corporate requirements, let's say, for use in this corporate environment. It could be something like, hey, you need to have multi-factor authentication enabled, you have to have a strong password, you have to have certain certificates installed, you have to have disk encryption turned on. It basically is there to make sure that this device does not represent a significant security threat. It may also install some anti-malware, some other utilities, and then and only then, if these things are met, you can use this device to get your corporate email, talk on your corporate communication applications, access particular secure websites, VPN stuff. You get where I'm going with that, right?
I do.
Okay. So here's what came to pass today and why I just had a little heart attack right before I came and recorded this podcast. So for reasons I'll get to in a moment, I now have 2 cell phones.
Interesting.
This is the life that I've chosen for myself. Just don't at me. I'll get to this in a minute. I had to activate the new cell phone. It came in the mail today after I talked to the nice people at AT&T. I opened a separate line. Idea being is that I don't want to give out my personal cell phone number as part of my new work. There's another reason that we'll get into here in a minute. But I now have 2 cell phones. I wanted to log in and add this new cell phone. Okay, so in order to do that, I have to log into my Mac, which is sitting over there on my lock screen. I use Touch ID because I'm a normal person and I like high technology. Sign in with my Touch ID, and I start going through the motions of activating this cell phone. So that in itself is always a joy, especially when it's a brand new device with a brand new number. So I go through setting all that up, and I need to now enroll my new device as part of this. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself, but when I enrolled my MacBook Pro in the mobile device management program, my password, my actual user password, so aka my root password for my device, was not strong enough, and it gave me warnings to that effect, like, "Hey, dummy, change your password."
Makes sense.
And so I did. Changed it, typed it in 1 or 2 times, thought I was good. I went to the gym this evening and ran a couple errands, came back and couldn't remember my password. Now, for non-Mac users out there, if you forget your password, you have a couple options at your disposal. What it usually boils down to is, do you have disk encryption enabled or file vault enabled? Which I do. So in order to reset your Apple password, you need your file vault recovery key. If you have an Apple ID, this is stored somewhere for the nice people at Apple. But long story short, I had to basically reset my device password, which of course nuked my keychain access, which broke a bunch of things.
Ouch.
Yeah, thank God for 1Password. I was able to kind of get things back at a semi-usable state before I could actually use my computer again. I had to re-enroll to my device. It was just tragic. So the moral of the story here is, remember your passwords. Now, topic change. Let's talk about why I have 2 cell phones. So I'm fine with taking my personal computer and using it for work purposes. I want to use my Mac to the fullest. Again, absolutely nothing against Windows. There are certain aspects of my career and my job that I will never be able to escape Windows in the foreseeable future. So I have things like VMs, and I have my company-issued device if I need to use that in a pinch for certain Windows applications that don't have a Mac or Linux equivalent right now. So I have no problem really enrolling that. I can connect to the corporate VPN when I need to. I cannot when I don't have to. I can use multi-factor authentication to connect to certain things and use email and corporate communications on that thing. Because at the end of the day, yes, it is a personal device, and I can use it for personal things, like listening to music and coding and doing my own thing. But let's not mince words. It is primarily a work device. So I have no problem doing that. What I did have a problem doing, though, is enrolling my personal phone in a very similar MDM management style.
Right. It's a lot more personal device.
Yeah. So my cell phone, let's see, how do I want to say this? There is a certain commitment to privacy that comes with enrolling your devices in MDM software. Now, the company that I work for, to its part, basically says, listen, you're an adult, we're adults, we trust you, we're not going to look at your browsing history, we can't see it. We do inventory the apps you have installed, but if worst comes to worst and you're a terrible employee and we need to fire you, this software will basically nuke your corporate accounts, certificates, and basically make it so you can't get into your corporate email. It's not going to wipe anything else out. If your device is stolen or lost, they can nuke it remotely,
That's
which
handy.
means which totally wipes it.
Right.
Which you know what makes sense. Totally
It does.
get it. But having said all that, you're not paranoid if they're really out to get you. It's problematic for me to hand over my phone, which I use for way more personal stuff than I do just my Mac. So the stars kind of align for me in that in my house right now, one of the family members is due for a cell phone upgrade, and the nice folks at AT&T are running a great promotion right now where if you have an eligible upgrade and or you add a line to your account, you get a buy one, get one free on a brand new iPhone XR. So one of the phones was recently paid off because we live in a world where we lease cell phones instead of buying them now, and I basically took that as an opportunity to upgrade opportunity to upgrade one of the devices in the house and get a buy one get one. The buy one get one is now my extra phone. So I have an original iPhone 10 and an iPhone XR, and we can talk about the iPhone XR later. I think it's a great piece of hardware so far. I didn't get the S just because this is a kind of, not a burner phone, but just a phone for work purposes. It's got a separate phone number that I don't have to give my personal phone number out for. If I want to get nagged or not nagged, it's a lot easier to ignore this phone than my other phone. So that's why I got it.
Yeah, you're fancy, Mr. Two Phones. You have a day phone and a night phone.
Yeah, Dr. Two Phones. Yeah, I mean, look, I go to weird places on Reddit, not racy places, not bad places, just weird places. I don't need anybody knowing that. My world would end if anybody ever figured out my Reddit username. It just would. And it's not. I go. Reddit's a cool place. There's a lot of weird stuff out there. Yeah, I would hate for anybody to misconstrue what I look at to infer what kind of person I am.
Yeah, well, your phone's your most personal device. Like, it's in your pocket all the time. It's your primary way of communicating with friends and family, and it just feels like that is yours and only yours. Like,
right.
I even feel kind of weird, like, picking up my wife's phone without permission. Like, I just don't do it. So I understand. Yeah, I don't understand not giving your phone over to anybody. Your employer, anyone.
Yeah, and I get it. You know, again, it's a protection thing. A lot of it is good common sense stuff. Like, I know a lot of people that, don't set a passcode or don't even put just don't have any kind of unlock mechanism, don't use Face ID. I think it's good to enforce those things. I get it. I know why they're doing it. And, working for the company I work for, I know they're acting in good faith. I don't think for a minute that they're spying on me or using any of that against me or anything if I would do it. But you're right. It is an incredibly personal piece of technology. I know that I've got a lot of personal emails, a lot of personal text messages, pictures, contacts. And here's the thing. My nightmare scenario is this. If the device gets wiped for whatever reason, right? My nightmare scenario is that a part of that wipe, I somehow lose all my other cloud contacts. I'm not saying that can happen, that would happen. I need that clear delineation. And even though I enrolled my personal computer in this program and have it managed, I don't know. I just feel really weird about it. And maybe I am being a little paranoid about things, or maybe I'm being a little wishy-washy about it. But having that extra phone, even if I have to carry around two phones, to me it just seems worth it. I don't know.
Yeah, I get it. It feels safer.
Yeah. And the fact that one of my phones was paid off, I'm basically adding a phone, so it's kind of a wash. I get a slight bump up in my bill for an extra line. But we all, it's all going to share the same data plan. Like, my plan doesn't change. The fact that I'm replacing one cell phone payment with another, and a slight, I think it's a $20 increase on AT&T for the extra line. I'll take it.
Right.
My privacy and my sanity and my peace of mind and the ability to browse Reddit willy-nilly is worth $20 a month to me.
Yeah,
it just is.
Sounds like it. Yeah, I would do the same thing.
Yeah, and I got a neat color that I'm happy about.
Ooh, what color did you get?
I went with blue.
Nice.
For reasons.
I get it.
Yeah, you get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the other big thing that has been a big part of my life, and it was kind of part of my life before the big career transition, but it's very, very prevalent now, is multi-factor authentication, which just kind of all rolls into the same discussion. So I'm just kind of steamrolling here.
Let's do it.
So multi-factor authentication, if you're not using it, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of different authenticators out there you can use.
Why don't you explain what multi-factor authentication is?
Okay, so here's the deal. We live in a world where passwords aren't necessarily the best security practice. Passwords are guessable. People are pretty terrible at guessing them. All the circles I travel in, people use password managers, which is cool, and they generate strong passwords, and everybody's happy. But I also travel in a lot of circles where people don't do that. So multi-factor authentication. The idea is that when you sign into a secure thing, like a website, a lot of websites have two-factor authentication, which is not the same as multi-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is usually something like a text message that gets sent to your phone to basically authenticate, hey, this is who you say you are. I'm not a white hat, black hat kind of guy, but as I understand it, 2FA isn't necessarily as good as MFA. Apparently, you can basically hijack somebody's SMS messages and just intercept those messages. I think you got to be a pretty big technical MacGyver to pull that off, but how hard is it to really fool a customer service person that you're
It's surprisingly easy.
It's more of a human engineering issue than it is a technology issue, I think. From what I've heard, anyway. I have no idea. Multi-factor authentication kind of takes it to the next step where you have some sort of authentication mechanism, usually a application, that when you sign into a secure resource, that resource basically sends its own signal to some kind of service that pushes a notification to your mobile device or your computer. You can also use keys or smart cards, also I think classifies multi-factor authentication. I know you and I both know somebody that uses a smart card for defending our freedom.
We do. Yep.
So
even something as simple as like a Touch ID or Face ID on an Apple device is a form of multi-factor authentication.
Yep. So in my new role, everything is MFA. Even signing into my computer at some points is an MFA challenge where I basically have to have my phone nearby to basically say, yep, I requested that. And then if I attempt to change the phone number associated with this, because the application is tied to my phone and is also tied to my ID and is also tied to my phone number. So when I set up this particular multi-factor authentication tool, it is tied to a phone number. I cannot install this app on anything else except the phone number associated with this particular account.
Wow.
Yeah. If I want to change that phone number, it will fire a warning to my manager to basically say, hey, Drew's trying to change his phone number. What do you think about this? So the reason I bring that up is that I originally set up the authenticator on my personal phone. I'm thinking I'm going to switch it over to the new phone number. I cannot have this app installed to multiple phone numbers.
That locks it down.
It certainly does. Security is something that my new company takes very seriously for good reason.
Yeah.
But I'm impressed. It's my workflow has changed pretty significantly so far. And I haven't even quote unquote done my job yet. I'm still kind of in my ramp period where I'm figuring a lot of things out and watching a lot of videos about the company I work for. My workflow is going to change pretty significantly, and I'm still trying to figure out a good way to handle the Windows part of my workload. I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm working on it.
I try to use multi-factor authentication as much as I can. I use it for my Google accounts, some, handful of other things. Basically anywhere it can, I use it. I personally, since, I don't work for the same company you do, I use an app called Authy, which generates all those tokens for me. So for example, for people that don't understand, if I try to log into my Gmail account from a computer that I haven't used before, it basically says, hey, what's your password? And I give it to it. It's like, ooh, I don't recognize you. Open up Authy and type in the code that it gives you. So I do that, and then it makes sure that it's actually me. It works great. It makes me, I feel much more secure. People just can't guess my password or brute force it, or, I had a friend who got hacked because he had very guessable security questions. What's your mother's maiden name? And they just found him on Facebook and found all that information and got into his account that way. So this just gives me a little bit more security.
No, and it's good. And, I feel like I feel like the first time I ever got exposed to MFA was through gaming. Things like Blizzard has a mobile authenticator app. A couple MMOs also use it. Steam uses it now. I think Ubisoft uses Google Authenticator at this point. That's kind of where I first got exposed to it. This is the first time I've actually used this for day-to-day stuff. Here's a question for you. Have you ever used a YubiKey?
I have not, but I've been tempted.
Didn't like Google throw some horsepower behind that or something?
I think so. Yeah, so for those who don't know, a YubiKey acts kind of like that token generator, but it's actually a hardware device that you plug in. Yeah, outside of that, I really don't know much. The website literally has someone wearing a YubiKey as an earring. That's neat.
For all your Blade Runner dystopian future needs. I also, as part of my new role, have a smart card, and nobody uses them because we have the mobile authentication app.
Right.
But I just for funsies, I did buy a smart card reader. I bought a USB one because I want to use it on multiple devices. And I live in Dongletown, so this particular card reader, I'll have to put a link to the one I bought in show notes, is basically like a Swiss Army knife card reader because it looks like it's about the same dimensions as a USB drive, but it unfolds like a butterfly knife. So it opens up, and then the USB part gets exposed, and then these two little arms that hold the card come out, and then the part that actually reads the smart card chip is just kind of right by the USB part. It's really, really cool. It's very, very futuristic and kind of spy novel-y, but it's going to be a pain in the butt to use with my Mac, which I'm a little disappointed about, but this is life.
Yeah.
That's a good topic. So, long story short, one thing I want to definitely table, I don't think we need to go into it now, is the use of a good password manager. I mean, I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna add it to the list.
Yeah, let's get that on there for probably next time.
Yeah.
I've definitely talked enough about my security and device woes, and maybe we'll bring this one back in a few days or something to see how I'm doing with my new life, and if I haven't returned my phone yet, which is a distinct possibility, by the way. I may or not have been lied to by my friendly AT&T rep.
Uh-oh.
Well, so all right, fine, I'll keep going. So I am a very impulsive person. I think you know that about me.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, when I want it, and how do I say this without sounding like a big jerk? I don't think I can. So last summer, I wanted an iPhone 10. At the time, I had an iPhone 7 Plus. My wife had a significantly older phone. Her phone was paid off, mine was not, so we did a swap with our SIMs. I basically upgraded, air quotes, her phone to the 10 and then swapped SIMs, so I have the 10 and she had the 7. Did the AT&T Next program where every 24 months you can get a new phone. So as I mentioned earlier, it was time to do a phone upgrade, and I called AT&T and I said I want to add a line, I want to upgrade my phones. I think my wife's phone is paid off because remember, hers is the iPhone 7, okay? Now here's the funky part. So my wife and I swapped SIMs. So I've got the iPhone 10, which is originally upgraded her line to last summer, or maybe the summer before that, I can't remember. And she's got the iPhone 7 Plus. So the phone that should be paid off, if my math is correct, is not the iPhone 10. There's absolutely no way that phone was paid off before the iPhone 7. It's not possible.
Right.
But according to AT&T's record, the iPhone 10 is paid off. So the phone that is more expensive and tied to my phone number is the one they're saying is paid off. I don't necessarily care. I just want one of the lines to be upgradable.
Right.
So I called AT&T and I was adamant. I'm like, look, I want to upgrade my wife's iPhone 7 Plus. My phone is paid off. I don't think that's right. And they're like, no. Yours is paid off. You can even use it towards a credit. And I said, no, I want to keep this phone because it's a really good phone. I want to upgrade hers. And the lady I talked to said, oh, yeah, there's a such thing as shared upgrades, and we do this all the time. Don't worry about it. Add your line. When you get your 2 phones in the mail, you'll activate your new phone with the new number, and you'll be able to activate your wife's number with the other number. Activating my new phone was very, very straightforward. I absolutely do not feel comfortable trying to upgrade my wife's line because everywhere it says it doesn't matter how many times I type her number in, it keeps reverting back to my cell phone number. So one of 2 things is going to happen if I try to do this right now. 1, it's going to bork her phone, which we haven't backed up yet, or 2, it's going to bork my phone, and I'm going to have 2 iPhone XRs that are the same color.
Neither,
and I won't be able to tell them
good,
apart.
Right.
Neither are good. And unfortunately, due to reasons, we're not in a place where we can do this together at the moment. So I need to wait a few days, but I totally expect to spend significant time on customer support with AT&T tomorrow. Oh God, cell phone companies are the worst.
Anytime you have to be on the phone for support is not fun.
And I get it. I mean, I know they're trying to churn. They got numbers they got to hit. I know,
right?
But I couldn't have been more clear about what I wanted. Am I a sucker? Is this what this boils down to?
I think a lot of time they just kind of tell you what you want to hear to make you happy, whether it's possible or not, or whether they're actually going to help you or not.
Well, I think worst case we can swap SIMs.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I'm hoping, or else one of these is getting sent back.
I hope not.
Well, here's the thing. Remember though that this is a buy one get one situation for them. So the way it's going to work, or I was told it was going to work, is that on my bill, when this all takes effect, there is going to be 2 charges for these 2 iPhone XRs, and then a credit for one of them.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So if I have to send one back, right, I'm really no worse for the wear.
In theory.
Now, she's going to be pissed if we can't upgrade her phone, but I guess, I could carry around an iPhone 7 Plus and give her the new one, which will probably be what happens.
Right.
If we cannot get this figured out, that will be what happens. So, anyway. All right, I've talked way too long, so I'm going to turn it over to you. And, Paul, here's what I know about you. You like loud, angry music.
I do.
I have heard your loud, angry music from my desk before. I want you to talk about what makes metal great, and if I were an aspiring metalhead, where would I start?
Oh, geez. That second one's tricky. So what makes metal great? So I always didn't listen to, quote, aggressive music, unquote. I kind of, I was in high school in the 90s. Grunge was a very big part of my life. Like, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, stuff like that. Right around the end of high school and beginning of college, I started to get into industrial music, things like Nine Inch Nails or Frontline Assembly, music that's very heavily produced, lots of found sounds, lots of noise, lots of static, and listened to that for quite a long time. But it's actually kind of weird. As I've gotten older, my taste in music has gotten heavier and heavier. So now I'm a full-blown metalhead. I listen to... surprise, there is actually lots of different subgenres of heavy metal music. I listen to a lot of what they would call death metal or black metal, a little bit of progressive metal. So the typical thing is heavy guitars, heavy drums, and somebody screaming. It is definitely an acquired taste, but for me, I love the complexity of metal music, the layers, the depth, the speed, the technical ability these musicians have to play this type of music. I also love the emotions that you kind of get from aggressive music. I love my favorite thing to do. One of my favorite things to do in the world is see live metal bands. typically speaking, metalheads are kind of on the fringe of society, the outcasts. So you get them all together. Everyone's usually pretty nice. Everyone's talking about other bands they've seen, comparing T-shirts. I have a decent collection of metal shirts. And yeah, it's my identity. It's part of the community. Just everyone getting together and listening to loud, angry music. As far as how to get into it, that's tough because I think metal music purposely tries to, well, the stuff I listen to, it's not very approachable. It's confrontational on purpose. There are some really good Spotify playlists that I like a lot. Yeah, there is a death metal and beyond playlist that features bands like Skeleton Witch, who I just saw recently, Deicide, that's a friendly band name, Amon Amarth. They are actually a Viking metal band. That's actually pretty interesting. They sing about Norse mythology. And there is a black and dark metal playlist as well. It features bands like Dark Throne and Stormlord. Yeah, very, very happy metal names. I like it loud, I like it fast, and I like it angry. It makes me feel good.
I feel like there's way more I could say about that last statement, but this is family entertainment. Okay, so you also have gone to some pretty amazing metal shows, at least in the past year that I can recall.
Yep.
Where's the big one you're headed to? You're going someplace soon, right?
So
I mean, bleep bloop. You don't need to give any dates, but like,
I don't have a lot planned right now. Well, I do have one. I just recently saw Skeleton Witch in concert. It was in a small. So typically, metal shows there is a mosh pit. If there is any kind of seating, I prefer to be in general admission. I prefer to try to get close to the stage. So usually I'm usually mosh pit adjacent. If the pit is more tame, sometimes I will get in there, though I'm becoming a man of a certain age, so moshing becomes more difficult. Actually got accidentally punched in the face on at the Skeleton Witch show. The mosh pit was a little zany. It was an accident, except for the guy was kind of being a little aggressive, but he didn't actually mean to hit me, and it was fine. The next concert I actually have scheduled is so I'm in the Columbus area. There's a great place in North Columbus called the Al Rosa Villa. If anyone knows any kind of metal history, famous metal band Pantera, one of their members was a guy named Dimebag Darrell. He was actually shot and killed at the Al Rosa Villa, so that's its claim to fame. That's where, that's where he died.
Everybody, come on down to Columbus.
Yeah. So the next show I'm going to is kind of a parody metal show. I've seen these bands once before. The two big bands is a band called Oakley Dokley.
I love this so much.
They are an extreme metal band that they all dress like Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, and all of their songs are Ned Flanders quotes. They have a YouTube video for their song White Wine Spritzer, and they were actually recently featured in the ending credits of a recent Simpsons episode. So that was kind of cool. Oh.
So I didn't know about this until you showed it to me.
Yes.
And you don't have to be a metal fan to appreciate what's going on in this video. We need to definitely link to that video in the show notes because it's phenomenal.
Yeah, they are very high energy. Yeah, it's a very entertaining band. They got a gimmick. It works for them. Yeah. The headliner for the show is a band called Mac Sabbath. They dress like evil versions of McDonald's characters. So like Ronald McDonald, Grimace, Mayor McCheese, the Hamburglar. And they sing parody Black Sabbath covers. So instead of like War Pigs, it's More Ribs. Instead of Iron Man, it's Frying Pan. So they're just kind of a fun band. They get up there, they sing their their Black Sabbath covers. It's a good time. So if you're they're actually touring all over the place. So yeah, I would if you like parody bands and just funny things, check them out. It's a good time.
I have not seen them, but that reminded me of a video that I'm going to put in show notes that might have been my most favorite thing I've ever seen on the internet. I got to find it again. But it relates to it relates to fast food characters. I don't know if you saw this video that was making the rounds or not. But it's a good one. I'll put a link in show notes. I'm not going to spoil it for you right now.
Can't wait. I don't think I've seen that one.
It's a good one. A little bit of spoilers. It comes from the Reddit. It comes from the subreddit r/took-too-much. It's so good. I have to find it though. I know that I looked at it like 3 days ago. I looked at it and I can't stop watching it. It's so friggin' funny. But I just have to find it again. So let's see. So you got punched in the face.
Accidentally.
Okay, so was it more of a glancing blow or like kind of full on?
It was full on. You get different types in mosh pits. Most of the time it's, just people pushing, moving around, jumping, having a good time. Occasionally you get, just jerks, and they're just there to show off and like peacock and show everybody how much of a big man they are. And he was just happened to be right in front of us and our friends. And, he was just going nuts and wasn't paying attention to what he was doing. And it just happened. I'm not mad. I kind of, it's kind of like being a mosh pit dad. So if you ever seen videos of mosh pits, right, there's usually an open area in the middle and there's people bouncing all around like popcorn in a popper. And then there's this kind of ring of people on the outside that as people kind of get pushed too far, they kind of stop them, push them back in. If someone falls down, these are the guys that typically kind of rush in and pick people back up so they don't get hurt. And that's usually where I find myself is, mosh pit adjacent, kind of just helping people. And he was just on the outside. It's not the worst I've ever got. I actually got a mild concussion at one show. I got pushed pretty hard through a mosh pit. Someone else got pushed hard at the same time. We bumped heads. I saw stars. Almost fell down. But it happens. It's all part of what makes metal great.
But like, you didn't like draw blood or anything, though, right?
No. Well, I have. I've cut my hand at a show once. I think it was actually on some guy's nipple piercing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So, I think that was a band called Behemoth. They were opening for Slayer. So I was in the pit for that. It was a good pit, but just bounced off some guy. I think my hand kind of hit his piercing, put a little cut on my hand. So like, you know what? I'm done. I'm out. I left the pit and hung out with my friends the rest of the night, which I think was good because rumor has it that somebody actually got stabbed during the Slayer show in the mosh pit. So, that's a little too far. That's where I draw the line. Knives.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
Okay, so
you don't get a lot of stabbings at Taylor Swift shows. I'm just saying, like.
Well, I mean, but who? So okay, so weapons in the pit, is that like do or do not? Is that good form, bad form?
That's bad form.
Okay.
You typically don't want, like, if you have any kind of spikes on your, on your clothes, because there's always spikes. You kind of want to take those off. You don't want to be kicking in the mosh pit. Yeah. There's also, like, no groping in the mosh pit. That's a big rule. That's not cool.
Yeah. Okay, so I have been in a mosh pit exactly once in my life.
Ooh, interesting.
And, yep, it was at a Wu-Tang Clan concert. I was in high school. It was a long time. I still like Wu-Tang. They're for the children. I don't know if you know.
I've heard that.
But it was really good. But I almost died, and I've never been to a heavy metal show. So okay. First time mosh pit tips. Go.
First time mosh pit tips. Space can be dangerous. If you're packed in pretty tightly, you're generally not going to get hurt. It's going to be fine. You have to watch out when, like, space opens up rapidly, because when space opens up, people can start being pushed, people can go faster, limbs can start moving. So watch for space. And
well, hold on though. So counterpoint, right? So every mosh pit I've ever seen is not necessarily a sea of humanity, but it's a group of people.
Yep.
I understand that the concept of the space opening up because people can start rearing up and really mess somebody up.
Right.
But, like, if you're packed in there, there's nowhere to go, right? You have to gyrate to the same rhythm as everybody else,
you do.
Right?
But you're not going to get hurt, right? You're going to be relatively safe. Yeah. I mean, it's I have never been hurt when I've been in a pit that's condensed. It's always been when it opens up and people really start moving. There's generally, kind of speaking, like, towards the outside, there'll be, or closer to the stage, people will be more packed together. Or in a big pit, you kind of get this counterclockwise spiral that goes around that people can kind of go around in. And that's generally pretty safe. It's got to watch out for, space, elbows. The hard parts of the human body.
Okay. So, all right. What else?
I don't know. I think that covers about it. Yeah. Mosh pits, they're fun. Just,
So you're in the pit, right? You're in there. You're moving around. You're doing things that people do in pits. How do you jettison yourself? How do you get out?
Just head for the outside and just take a step out. Like, it's really not that hard.
But listen, I'm not a man of great stature. I don't feel that I can overpower the people I need to overpower to get to the outside. So
it's generally pretty respectful. Like, if you just kind of make the motion, like, with your thumb that you want to get out, people will let you go. It also generally works for trying to get in. Just say, like, hey, I want to get to the pit, and people let you through. Most people at a metal show are there just to have a good time and not mess with anybody. So, just say, hey, I want to get out, and people will let you out.
Huh.
Yeah. Most metal people are nice. Most, not all. Not all.
Okay. All right. So that leads me to my last question on the topic. Would there be a show that you would never go in the pit at?
Well, I accidentally was in a pit for this band once, and it was the scariest pit I've ever been to. There's a band from Cleveland called Mushroom Head, and no offense to anybody who listened to this podcast that also likes Mushroom Head, but in my experience, all their fans are jerks. So yeah, it was very, very frightening. A lot of big dudes wearing masks come out of nowhere and just want to just not have a good time, just really hurt people. So it's just...
are you sure you didn't end up at an ICP concert, or?
Yeah, so I have a friend who kind of calls Mushroomhead a poor man's Slipknot. So they have the gimmick, they wear masks, very angry. Yeah, it wasn't an ICP show. It was just, it was frightening.
So I've never been to an ICP show, but I have walked past the line to get into an ICP show, and that was scary enough for me.
Yeah, I've seen videos.
I mean, listen, there was a point in my life where I was semi down with the clown. I'm not knocking it. Everybody's got their thing, man. I don't know.
Yeah, every band has their own followers and a different vibe, but generally speaking, most metalheads, they're just out to have a good time, listen to some angry music, be around fellow like-minded people. Like one of my favorite things is just wearing a metal show to the grocery store, because there's usually somebody who's like, hey, nice shirt, I saw them 2 years ago, and then you have a little conversation and then move on with your day. So yeah,
you don't necessarily get that with some of the shirts that I wear.
No.
Yeah, okay. All right. No, that's good. I have tried to listen to certain metal lists or metal playlist on Spotify, and I'm not there yet. I'm gonna keep trying though, because I know that hearing you say kind of what makes a good metal track great, with the speed and the precision and the skill involved there. I think maybe if I come at it through that lens, I can appreciate it a little bit more. Where I'm at right now, at least just trying to listen to it, it all just kind of sounds like really angry dudes. And
yeah, the vocals is the hardest thing to get past. Like, I've played some tracks for some people before, and usually it's like introduction starts and you got guitars and they're vamping and they're riffing, the drums come in, it's heavy, and then some dude just starts, just screaming, just blah. And they're like, I'm out. Which I can get. It's not for everybody. It's definitely acquired taste. Especially, it takes some skill to learn actually what they're saying. Like most of the bands I listen to now, I've developed kind of the ear for it, and I can at least make out like 80% of the words. But as you're coming in, like, it's just, like I said before, I think a lot of times it's purposely hard to listen to. They make it confrontational on purpose. So it's harder to get into.
Yeah, and I can't have this discussion without at least calling out the band K9us. Have you listened to them?
That's the barking dog ones, right?
Yeah, that's the metal band where the dog does the lead vocals.
Yeah.
We have to at least mention that, right? Because
we do.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's from the normie me point of view. That's the kind of stuff that I associated with metal. I mean, I get it, I guess, but that's all that stuff. Even dog or no dog kind of sounds the same to me, and I really want to give it a better shake, because I know there's some good music there. I know there is.
Maybe I need to make a intro to metal for Drew playlist.
Yeah, you should. You should make that a public playlist, and we can share that out to our like 3 listeners.
You know what? I was looking at our stats just moments ago, and on Spotify we have had 11 downloads.
11. Okay, 11. So I've told one person about this.
I have told my family, and so I know my daughters listen to it. My whole family listened to it together in a car ride. I wasn't there, thank goodness. And she told a friend. So that's maybe 5 people. So
yeah, five or 6.
Yeah.
Somebody probably downloaded it by accident. I've been there.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I'm hoping that by the time this one's ready to go to press, that Apple will have their act together and we can officially.
Me too.
We can officially do some marketing, because I still don't think it's a good idea to market until all of it's out there and people can find it easy.
You can add it with RSS, but that's just, you have to copy and paste and.
I'm not an animal.
No.
I just want to.
Yeah.
I just want to. Okay, I found the Reddit video I was finally looking for. I'm gonna send it to you in Skype. You can watch it after. It's my favorite. It's currently one of my favorite videos on the internet. Whew, boy, is it good? Yeah, we need to drop that link in the show notes. Wow. It's from my new favorite subreddit. Yeah. There's so much going on there. I'm watching it right now. Oh, man. I needed that today.
I'm opening it right now. I'm kind of
okay.
All right.
You go ahead. You go ahead and watch it. I'll fill time while you do that. I think the last thing we need to talk about today. Let's see here. Let's talk about. I don't want to take up too much time here. We talked about that. Is there anything from last time we didn't get to? Yeah, there was, but that's a pretty long topic. We're still going to table the Shadowrun discussion. I don't think we're going to have time for that tonight because we're already in an hour.
Yeah. Hey, this could be a great stopping point.
It could be. Yeah, you know what? Let's table the rest. I know next time we're going to... Okay, so foreshadowing. Next podcast, I think we're really going to get into some heavy board gaming topics.
Ooh, I cannot wait.
We can talk about the board game table thing. We can talk about the board game organizers, and we can talk about Shadowrun 6th edition. And I've already got some things I want to think up for the next time as well.
Awesome.
So, Paul, let's talk about how people can get in touch with us, where they can send us email, where they can find us on the Twitterverse, things like that.
Absolutely. So we're on the interwebs at doingtheirbest.com. You can send us an email at contact@doingtheirbest.com. There's also a contact form on the website if you don't remember that. And we will be on Twitter at doingbestpod. And you can find the show on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and crossing fingers very soon, Apple Podcasts as well.
Yep. And you can find Paul Baylor on Twitter at, what is it, P. Baylor? Paul Baylor, so Paulbahler.
Bahler. Close.
Ler. Sorry, damn. It's almost like you have a hard name to spell. And you can find me on Twitter at PITTFURG. Also going to throw this out there to anybody listening. If you go to the website that is now active, you can submit questions to us. If there's anything you want us to cover, you want our take on, we'll do it. We'll have to get access to that inbox, but we'll definitely do that. Cool. Well, hey, you've been listening to They're Doing Their Best, and we thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
See you guys.